people are tired of being sick and tired, period. Okay? They're tired of looking at their doctor and not getting answers, and maybe even looking back at them like they have 10 heads, and all these things that they're experiencing, nobody really knows what to do with, right? And unfortunately, the way that society is set up in our country is we're just going to treat the symptoms versus getting to the root cause of the problem.
I'm your host, Brandy Fleck, and this is Human Amplified. This is a show about our existence, our place in the world, what it all means, and ways to make it better. From big picture ideas that blow your mind to practical life advice, we explore it all. We amplify the voices of healers, survivors, mystics, disruptors, scientists, creatives, and everyday people like you and me to expand our consciousness and use that awareness to evolve into who we really want to be in the depths of our soul. Humans Amplified. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy this episode, please go rate and review the show. And remember to subscribe where you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Hey friends, today is the season finale of Human Amplified. That means interviews have come to a close for 2025 and the podcast is going into its normal break for fall and winter. No worries though, more resources are already queued up to go on the Human Amplified blog, and solo videos will be coming to YouTube, so be sure to check out those places even when the podcast is off season. Browse around because there are a ton of stories, teachings, and messages in all the Human Amplified places that are here to support you. We are coming back in 2026 for a season 7, and the guest waitlist is already quite long. But if you or someone you know would be a great fit for the show, feel free to submit your idea at humanamplified.com/be-our-guest. Those requests all come directly to me for review, and I will get to every single one of them. The link for that will be in the show notes of this episode or in the description on YouTube. If you haven't already, please go rate and review the show. Let me know what's working for you and what's not, what topics you want to see in the future, and who your favorite guest of the season was. I am eternally grateful to all of you beautiful listeners and viewers out there, as well as to every guest who's been on the show. It's been an interesting, amazing season that I truly hope you got something from to help you be more yourself and live a more inspired, heart-led, aligned life. Thanks to our sponsors and affiliates this season, including Intuitive Bodywork Tennessee and Bed of Nails. And last but not least, thanks to our editor for all she does behind the scenes, Natasha Rivera. Without further ado, let's get into this interview. For the links mentioned throughout this episode, check the description box on YouTube or the show notes at humanamplified.com/episodes/145. What does being human mean to you?
Being human to me is being connected to one another. I think as humans, that is our biggest calling, is to be in relationship with other people. Which then also leads to building meaning relationships, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. I also think it involves embracing our imperfections, as none of us are perfect, making and learning from our mistakes, extending grace to ourselves and others as part of that growth process. And it's also, I think, about tuning into our own emotions, our thoughts and spirit, striving continuously for personal development and learning. And I also think it just means being authentic in both ourselves and connecting with other people.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Everyone, today we are talking to Jessica Lowery. She is the founder and CEO of the Power of Elderberries, a nationally trusted wellness brand based in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She's a wife, mother of 3, former lecturer in the Department of Public Health at Coastal Carolina University, and a passionate advocate for holistic health and healing. What began in her kitchen as a homemade remedy for her own family has since grown into a premium supplement brand recommended by holistic practitioners across the country. Her signature elderberry syrup, handcrafted with organic European elderberries, Local raw honey and whole organic spices is known for supporting immune function, allergy relief, joint comfort, blood sugar balance, and whole body vitality. Founded in 2018 during a season of deep personal struggle, the Power of Elderberries was born out of faith, perseverance, and an unwavering belief in nature's ability to heal. Today, Jessica shares her story to inspire others to trust their intuition, lean into their calling, and pursue wellness with purpose. And I'm so excited about this because we're going to dig deeper into all of that, as well as the bigger picture of proactive health, where that's going, where we're all going with it, why it's important to support your immune system, and much more. So, Jessica, welcome to the show. And how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. It's so great to meet you in person here.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And I've been looking over all of your products and your website, and like it's really exciting. I love what you're doing. And I know we sort of alluded to in your bio why you started doing it, which I want to dive into. But first, is there anything else you want people to know about who you are as a person?
As far as who I am as a person, I think you shared. I'm a wife, a mother of three. I'm a former lecturer at Coastal Carolina University and now entrepreneur and business owner. I love just being connected with my community. I love going to church and I love diving into personal development. So I'm really excited to be here.
Nice. Well, yeah. So let's dive into your story a little bit. So I know that you had a need in your family that couldn't be filled. And so you guys came up with your own solution. What was that journey like? And how did you get to this elderberry product line from that journey?
Well, the journey for me with discovering elderberry actually started in 2013. I was pregnant at the time with my first son, Beckham, and I started getting chills and fever and, body aches and all the things that were sharing with me, you're not feeling well. So I went to the doctor. And while I was there, I was like, I really want to do a holistic, natural way to help myself feel better and discovered elderberries through an internet search of them being one of nature's top antiviral herb and got my hands on some, took it every few hours and started feeling better instantly. So I became a believer of elderberry from my own personal experience of not feeling well and turning to it as a natural remedy as opposed to taking something else. And 5 years later, in 2018, that was a time while my husband was struggling with his health. We were financially in a place where we were struggling as a family, and we were also smack dab in the middle of cold and flu season during that time. Now, in 2018, I had three children under the age of 5, and immediately I was like, we need elderberry in our home. Not only did I know that it supports the immune system, but I also knew from my own personal experience 5 years earlier what it could do if symptoms would strike in our home as something more natural that I could turn to for myself as well as my kids. And in that 5 year span between 2013 and 2018, I did purchase many other elderberry brands. And the problem is that my daughter, that was 2, 3, 4, 5 at the time, while she was getting older between that time span, she didn't like the taste of any brand that I would bring home. And frankly, I wasn't keen on the ingredients of these brands that I was able to pick up at stores because a lot of them are full of added sugars, artificial sweeteners, fillers, dyes, added flavoring, preservatives, concentrates, the list goes on. And so in that moment in 2018, I was like, you know what? We want it in our family. I'm just going to go ahead and make my own formulation. That way I have control over the quality of ingredients that go into it. And I can also tailor the taste of the product so that all three of my kids willingly take it every single day. And also, it can become their quote, quote, medicine, right? Whenever they're not feeling well. So that's what I did. I gathered up the ingredients, I made it in my home kitchen, and then immediately I was like, you know what? I need to share this with more people because I bet a lot of people don't really know what elderberry can do for them, especially during cold and flu season. So I took a picture of myself making it in my home kitchen, put it out on social media, just as a mere way to educate people and let them know what nature can do for our health. My own experience 5 years later, with the hopes that they would go find themselves some elderberry at the store, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm.
little did I know, a couple hours later, I had a couple comments from friends that said, "Hey, Jessica, if you have any extra, I would love to purchase some from you." And in that moment, I knew that this was a calling and an answered prayer because weeks prior to that, I had been praying on my knees, God, show me a way to help our family financially. What is it that you want me to do? Do you want me to get a second job? Do you want me to sell things out of our home? What is it that you want me to do to step into?
Wow.
So when those comments came through, I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm being called to make this elderberry syrup for our own community to help support their health too. Meanwhile, my husband and I both have jobs and 3 kids under 5, and I'm nursing one, and one's going off to kindergarten, and 2 are in preschool. And life was crazy. But I stepped into it willingly, knowing that there's a purpose behind this, and I'm going to lean into that. And little did I know what impact and shift in career and transition for our own family that stepping into making it for my community in that moment would lead to. So here we are almost 8 years later. And of course, a lot has changed between where it started and where we are now. But that really is the heart of where our story began.
Ooh, when you were talking about that being an answered prayer, it's like I got full body chills because I love when stuff like that happens and you're just sort of along for the ride, but you know. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your intuition and prayer played into this journey?
Well, I think in terms of prayer and your intuition, it definitely leads you to that knowing of jumping out in faith and knowing that even though it's scary, even though you don't know where it's going to take you, and there's a lot of fear, I know that my God's never going to let me down. So that's what really gave me the courage to want to step into it. Now, I will say that it was really hard. My husband and I would be up in the kitchen from 7:30 at night to 3 o'clock in the morning after putting 3 kids to bed. And I was teaching, not full time because some of my classes got cut that semester, but my husband had his own career with financial planning. And I can actually remember a few months into us doing this, looking at my husband and really personally wondering, should we even step into this? Like, yes, we've stepped into it and we're in it, but this is a lot.
Yeah.
Is this something that we want to continue to do with everything else that we have on our plate? And I can just remember sharing with him, like, I think you either need to quit your job or we need to shut all this down. Because I didn't want to give up teaching because I love teaching. I taught at the college level as a lecturer in the personal and community health and public health department and didn't want to give that up. But, going back to what you asked, I think we all have that intuition and calling that comes our way through different roads and areas of our life. And oftentimes it's very easy to kind of push them aside and ignore them
Mhm.
and know that, well, no, that's not really my plan, so I'm not gonna step into that. But for me, it's like the anxiety and, like, that feeling in my gut, just knowing that this is where I'm supposed to go, I oftentimes feel relief when I do step into it because I know that those are the steps and the road and purpose in which I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'd like to zoom out a little bit to a society level, since you are in the holistic wellness industry. And I feel like as a society, we're shifting more away from that sick model of healthcare to a more functional and proactive sort of model. People are taking their health into their own hands, sort of like you did. What are you observing in regard to that shift?
I think what I'm observing from being in connection with our own community and customers who take our product on a regular basis, and even those that find us that haven't taken it before, is that people are tired of being sick and tired, period. Okay? They're tired of looking at their doctor and not getting answers and maybe even looking back at them like they have 10 heads and all these things that they're experiencing, nobody really knows what to do with, right? And unfortunately, the way that society has is set up in our country is we're just going to treat the symptoms versus getting to the root cause of the problem. And I think there's been a big shift in more and more Americans, especially waking up to wanting to get to that root cause of the problem. Just tell me what it is that I need to do. Tell me what is causing this, and I want to lean in. But more than ever, I think they're wanting to lean into something more natural and holistic and really diving into the research of what nature can do for our health. I think more and more people are open minded because they don't want the side effects. They
Mhm.
don't want to take another medication that's going to cover up the symptoms that their previous medication has caused. They're tired of feeling sick and tired, and I think that that's the biggest shift is people are starting to dig in, maybe do a little bit more research for themselves, and really take more ownership in trying to find help in getting to the root cause of what it is that's going on with their body.
Yes. And you're talking about finding the root cause. I feel like that means we're becoming more connected to our bodies, more connected to nature, like you said. And that's an amazing shift because the more connected we are to our bodies, the more healed we can be, the more aware we are of just what life has to offer. So I feel like that's a really cool shift, honestly.
I do too.
Yeah. There are barriers to everybody making this shift, whether it's financial, because insurance doesn't always cover like natural remedies and things like that. The FDA doesn't really deal in supplements. There's always that thing, oh, not approved by the FDA. And so some people have worries. What would you say? Like, do you have any tricks up your sleeve to kind of get past those barriers so that more people can make the shift?
Well, I think that we can all agree that food is medicine, right? And it's so healing to our body, especially if we know what foods to lean into that's going to help support our body in a bigger way. We know that a lot of dis-ease in our body comes from inflammation. So cutting out refined sugars and processed foods and switching more to, meats and fruits and vegetables and protein, and nuts and seeds and all these great things. I think that starting in the actual kitchen is a great shift that people can do where maybe they don't have the finances to go to a functional or holistic practitioner and get a bunch of blood work drawn and throw 20 supplements on their counter at this time. But a lot of the great supplements out there, the ones that you can trust with integrity and efficacy and third party lab testing, they're the ones that are whole food ingredients. And I think that that's what's really, really important to note too, because a lot of people know that, oh, this is great for me. This is great for me. So they go and find supplements with those things. But what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of those supplements, unfortunately, they're not third party lab tested. The company's not registered and inspected by the FDA. There's a lot of added sugar and fillers that go into those supplements that are really pulling back from the pure ingredients that we're really looking to nurture and supplement our health. If you think about the word supplement, it's a supplement to what you're doing to make that even better. But unfortunately, a lot of supplements, they don't have the pure, clean ingredients that we're hoping for. So in that shift, it starts in the kitchen. And that's where you have control over what you're putting into your body. And I think that's a great first place to start.
Okay.
Whole food nutrition.
Yeah, whole foods in the kitchen. What about the people who would say that it's difficult to eat fresh whole foods? Are there ways to keep the cost down?
Well, if we're not shifting to nutrition and food, I think that another great thing is to get movement and to connect with nature, which we were talking about a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
going for a walk every day, looking at ways that we can promote better sleep because good sleep is connected to our gut health, which is also connected to our immune system, which affects our entire body. So even looking at ways to getting better sleep is naturally going to help support our health in a bigger way. For some people, that could be turning off screen time earlier in the day and allowing their body to unwind naturally and not being so focused on being on their phones or their computers right before bed. It could be, scheduling a time that you go to bed and get up at the same time so that your body creates a rhythm. So I think, being out in nature, grounding exercises, journaling, practicing mindfulness, getting connected in a social realm and connecting with community. I think community is just so important for us as humans. And, there's been a big shift in the last 5 years that has created more isolation for people.
Hmm.
And I think also people would be very surprised at what being in community with like-minded people could really do to help support their health. I always told my college students, if you can't talk about it, write about it. So, being in community is going to help us talk about it. But if that's not available to somebody, then they can start journaling. And I think that that is also going to help with mental, emotional health, which then also feeds into all those other areas of our health as well. That naturally, without having any money at all and financial burden being an issue for some people, those are all things that are free that can help support our health.
Those are really good points. So if they can't start with Whole Foods, there are lots of other places to start. And I think it's important to note too that in investing in your health in that way, in paying for maybe a little bit more expensive organic product or something like that, will keep you from paying for sickness later. So
Mhm.
that's one way to reframe it, if that helps. But I was also hearing you say that not all supplements are created equal, not all ingredients are created equal. And so when they're looking for supplements, I heard you say third party lab testing,
Mhm.
whole food ingredients, no
Yes.
added fillers or sugars. Those are
Yes.
some of the main ways to tell that you've got a good product on your hands. Is there anything else that defines a good, high quality product that somebody should be looking for?
Well, I know as a consumer, it can be very, very overwhelming. I mean, there are so many supplements on the market, and a lot of times there's these really big, flashy, great things on the labeling that will catch our attention, or, of course, the marketing behind the product that catches our attention. But if I could share, I think the most important thing for consumers to look at when it comes to supplements is the ingredient list. The ingredient list alone is going to tell you everything you need to know about the product without looking at anything else on the label. Now, we did talk about, as far as ingredient lists, a lot of supplements have added sugar. We want to stay away from that. That's not whole food nutrition. Supplements that are high quality are not going to have added sugar. However, just talking about sugar alone, oftentimes you might see no sugar added or natural flavoring. You want to stay away from all of that because the no sugar added is typically another sweetener in place of that. Now, we do say no refined sugar, no artificial sweeteners with our marketing on our label as well. But if you turn to that ingredient list, like I was sharing before, you'll notice the only sweetener that goes into our formula is local raw honey. So, even going back to talking about nutrition and processed sugars and staying away from those if we can, and that's one smart move that people can take, turning away from the sodas and the added sugar that you're getting in drinks and really using either local raw honey or pure maple syrup as your choice of sweeteners, which is going to be in alignment with a paleo diet. And those are the best sweeteners of choice. But looking at supplements, many supplements have a lot of added sugar. So that's something to look at on the ingredient list. And don't be fooled all the time by the marketing claims that say no sugar added. The other thing to look for, like we talked about, is the third party lab testing. Most companies don't step into doing that because it's very costly to do. However, I will warn you that companies that are not third party lab testing their supplements means that they are relying solely on in house testing to verify the best by date and also to verify the safety of that product for people that are putting it in their body. And that alone is not enough. It needs to get shipped off to a lab. It needs to be tested. And most companies that maybe aren't registered with the FDA, they're not going to take the additional steps of third party lab testing because they're not under the radar, so to say, in terms of what they're producing and putting on the market.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying those things. And so I would love to understand a little bit more about how a reputable supplement company works with the FDA, because I always see like, oh, this statement's not FDA approved or, something like that. And so it just seems like the FDA is not involved in supplements. What actually goes on there?
Well, as a supplement, you do have to put that FDA statement on your products. And the FDA does have oversight on supplements. However, they only have oversight on brands that are registered with the FDA. So, if a company is making a product and they never register themselves and the FDA doesn't even know they're in existence, there's no oversight of that brand or company, which is very, very scary to know that there are a lot and probably a majority of supplements on the market that may not even be registered. Okay.
Okay.
So that's pretty scary, right? To know that there are supplements out there that aren't going through that rigorous testing, that don't have compliance and regulation oversight. So, the FDA does work with supplements in that way. Food, if a food company and brand is manufacturing food, they're actually going to fall under the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture. So there's different compliance and regulatory agencies that kind of deal with different things based on what it is that you're manufacturing.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. How can you tell if the supplement is registered or third party tested?
So the first thing you want to look for to kind of know what agency they would fall under is whether it's a nutrition facts panel, which is going to be food, versus a supplement facts panel, which is going to be a supplement. Okay. So that's the first thing to kind of look for in knowing what agency they would fall under if they're registered with that agency. As far as third party lab testing goes, this is something that I think needs a little bit more oversight because there's not actually a universal logo that goes out there for people that actually get third party lab testing done. Now we have a symbol on our own bottles that, show that our products are third party lab tested, which is something very important for consumer safety and quality control. And I can assure you, companies that are doing it are going to make it known on their website or on their labeling because I believe it really helps differentiate them from other supplements and creates a higher level of trust with consumers if they know that that particular brand is taking the steps and the resources to make sure their products are tested for efficacy, as well as the integrity of the ingredients that go into it. And also, it verifies the potency of the product.
Okay.
So that's kind of scary too. Like, if you don't know the actual potency of the product in terms of how many milligrams of said ingredient that you're actually ingesting when you take the product.
Gotcha. Okay, well, all of that's good to know. Let's pivot a little bit, though, into more of our immune system. Why is it important to support our immune system?
Well, our immune system essentially keeps our entire body healthy, even at a cellular level. So it's our immune system is what communicates with our nervous system and our cells and everything else in our body to keep us well. So, when people think of immune system, oftentimes cold and flu season are the first thing that kind of comes to mind of, oh, I need to keep my immune system strong so that I don't get sick this season, right?
Mhm.
But I think if people understood their immune system a little bit better, they would realize that it's not just seasonal that we want to keep our immune system strong, but it's also year round because it affects how we function and how we live day in and day out based on how strong our immune system is. So, it affects everything. It affects our sleep, it affects our gut health, it affects our cells, our organs, our nervous system, everything that our body has in terms of living our best quality of life.
So, why elderberries? Because I know people take zinc, and there are probably lots of other options to support your immune system. What is so amazing about the elderberry?
Well, elderberry not only have immune system support, but they also have a lot of other properties within them that help support whole body wellness. As I shared earlier, I discovered elderberries as one of nature's top antiviral herb and also an herb that has clinical studies and research and support in people that are struggling with whether it be cold and flu symptoms or sinus infection aid. Elderberries naturally help support blood sugar levels. They're great for supporting our immune system. Elderberries are rich in what are called anthocyanins that create a little protection barrier around our cells so that viruses and other things that might try to penetrate those cells and take hold, it protects them from that. So, of course, I discovered elderberries in my own journey through wanting a natural remedy to turn to that could help support my immune system and help me recover faster of the things that I was dealing with during that time with cold and flu symptoms. But a lot of people are also leaning into elderberries because, again, not only do they help support the immune system, but they're also rich in antioxidants. And we know how great antioxidants are for our health and our cells. They have rutin in them, and rutin is great for blood circulation and supports heart health. Elderberries are rich in quercetin. Quercetin is something that typically some people will turn to as a natural supplement they can do to support their allergies, where elderberries are already rich in quercetin.
Oh.
So there's so many things when you really dive into the research and what these elderberries are made of. I think more and more people are thinking, oh, well, it not only just supports my immune system, but look at all this other whole body wellness support that I'm getting from elderberries. However, the second step to that is a lot of elderberry supplements on the market add a lot of those things that we talked about that we want to stay away from earlier. So if you have this amazing herb that has so many great properties to it, but yet it's being filled with a lot of added sugar and fillers and dyes and flavoring and preservatives, it really pulls away from that great benefit that your body could reap by taking elderberry. So I think that's important to note too when we again going back to what we talked about earlier, whole food nutrition, which that's what we put in our formulation, but also looking at other supplements are adding that's taking all those great benefits away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And I think as you're talking, I'm just thinking about how, when you use whole foods to support your health, there are all of those other benefits. Whereas, like, if you're using a pharmaceutical, even if it's based on a plant, the pharmaceuticals are sort of stripped of those whole food properties and they only focus in on one little property. And so you don't get that benefit, at least in some of the reading that I've been doing. So I think it's amazing that nature can heal like that.
Well, another thing I thought about when you said with pharmaceuticals of not having that whole food nutrition is you have to think about too what is being made in a lab versus what is being made out of whole food nutrition that you could find in your own kitchen, right? That's a big difference in terms of the processing and the function of what you're going to reap nutrition wise from what it is that you're putting in your body.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot, all the way from society to the benefits of elderberries. Is there anything else that you would add in to, say, if somebody wanted to take an elderberry product regularly just to support their health? Is there any other thing they should add in to support that? Or can they just take an elderberry product and be good?
Well, elderberries in themselves are very bitter tasting. Okay. So there's a lot of different forms of taking elderberry. You have tinctures that are made with alcohol. You have tinctures that are made with vegetable glycerin, which is added a sugar type. You have elderberry supplements that are coming in pill form or syrup form or gummy form. And again, a lot of those supplements on the market do have a lot of other added ingredients, and they're not just pure elderberry that you're getting. So you have to be mindful of what else am I putting into my body with this ingredient list besides just the elderberry. Now, in terms of our particular products and formulation, we use the European black elderberry, which is important to note because there's many different species and varieties of the elderberry plant. It is the European black elderberry with the scientific name of Sambucus nigra that you will see in the ingredient list that lets you know it is in fact the European black elderberry that's being used, which the research supports to have the medicinal properties. But we also add whole cloves, whole cinnamon sticks,
Mm.
fresh cut organic ginger root, and only local raw honey in with the elderberry. So we're talking about 5 core pure organic ingredients from nature that make up our supplement, which is also kept refrigerated. We don't thermally heat process it. Our liquid has no added preservatives, sugar, fillers, dyes, flavoring, concentrates. It's literally just whole food nutrition that goes into the supplement that you take every day. And then we formulated that liquid form into what we call our bite form, which is a chewable that somebody can take to reap the same benefits of our liquid on the go without refrigeration.
Mm.
Still not adding any sugar or any of those other things that I talked about earlier. So, in terms of, elderberry, again, going back to the ingredient list, what else is going in with the elderberry? And is that going to help support or deter the benefits for your health?
Right. Okay. Well, and I love too, like the whole cinnamon and cloves, all of that. They all have their own medicinal
Mhm.
healing properties too. So
Right. Yeah.
it's like a powerhouse. It's packed.
It is. It really has become like the synergistic effect of all of that working together, which is supporting whole body wellness, because they all have their own benefit for our health as well.
Mhm. Okay. Well, Jessica, is there anything else that you would love to share that I haven't asked you today?
I can't think of anything. I'm just trying to think here if I missed anything. I mean, of course, I could talk for hours. So I love educating. It's really the heart and soul of who I'm made to be. And of course, I had shared earlier of being in the classroom for years at the university level, teaching college students personal and community health. So it really is a passion within me to educate people. And my gosh, have I learned so much stepping into this realm and calling of entrepreneurship in the supplement world of all things, of really leaning in and learning more for myself, but most importantly, a desire to want better for my own family, which has really made me picky choosy in terms of the supplements that we do take because of everything that I've learned.
Yeah. Ooh, and let me ask you too, that just reminded me, do people have to take supplements or can they get all of the nutrition they need just from diet?
That's a great question. I do think we probably could get all the nutrition that we need through diet. Of course, if we ate all these separate ingredients that we put into our formulation separately, I don't know if it would still have the same impact. I mean, it also depends how you're using them, how they're being processed. Are they being heat treated? Is it ground spices and herbs, or is it whole ingredients? Because that also makes a impact in terms of the benefit that you're going to reap from what it is you're taking. Because I do hear people that are like, "Oh yeah, I take a teaspoon of raw honey every day, and I put some cinnamon sticks in my tea that I drink every day." But I think it's really really neat in terms of how when people take our supplement of all of it being pulled together as one, how it is making such an impact in how they feel every day, whether it be supporting their immune system. They can feel a difference in their energy level. Our customers are, it's promoting better sleep for them. It's helping with joint mobility and inflammation support. It's helping with natural allergy and sinus health, blood sugar, healthy regulation in that. So it's very interesting. I think that diet definitely plays a role because I feel like all dis-ease is inflammation, and the more that we can reduce inflammation in our body, the better off we're going to feel. But it could start with a whole food supplement with nothing added so that you know that you're getting, that herb, that spice, that whole food nutrition in your body by itself with nothing added to it.
Okay. All right. Well, where can listeners find your work, your products, your website, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. They can visit the Power of Elderberries, IES on the end.com. That's going to be our website. We do ship nationwide, and I'd love for people to follow us on social media at the Power of Elderberries to learn more along the way as well.
Fantastic. All right. Well, all of that will be in the show notes. So, guys, go check it out. Do your research, see if you want to get into some of this stuff. And Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. Check out more of our episodes here and at humanamplified.com. Remember to subscribe.